Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Three-peat. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day, brought to you by Pat Riley's trademark. I probably can't start the show that way. So that was just for you if you're live here on the Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel. Welcome. It's Monday. What a day. We're going to have to start the show differently, I think. Legal's getting involved. Here we go. 4, 8, 6, 9. Ready, set, 3. That's the Nothing Personal words of the day for January 27th, 2025. The Kansas City Chiefs are going for 3 in a row as they somehow, some way, through no divine intervention of any kind, are making it to the Super Bowl for the 5th time in 6 years. Super Bowl 59 will be the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. What goes around comes around. 2 years ago, we had the same matchup. So much happened yesterday. Here's what you're going to get on Nothing Personal. My frustration on a few issues. Let's start with number one. How many more times will I have to explain to people about parity, about competitive balance? Every day. Every day. Strangers, friends, Romans, and countrymen. The Dodgers are the worst thing ever for baseball. Yep, former president of a small payroll team. I'm in. Dodgers, why even play the season? It's over. The Dodgers are going to win. Baseball happens to have the best parity of any of the 4 major sports. 10 major sports. Pick the number. How about the NFL? Everyone's saying, oh, the NFL, it's the greatest league ever. The Chiefs win every time. And it's a salary cap. Oh, but here's how we're going to fix baseball. We're going to put a cap on the Dodgers. We'll put a floor on the A's and the Royals and the Marlins and the Guardians. And then everyone's going to have a chance to win. Okay. When's that going to stop? Is it enough now when the Chiefs are a dynasty that is not too far away from the Patriots dynasty? As a matter of fact, go back even to even before I was in baseball. Maybe not. It may be. No, it was probably during baseball. There was a thing where in the AFC, it was either Brady or Peyton Manning, and there was 1 year of one guy. It may have been Joe Flacco, Coca, your Ravens guy. But there was a huge stretch that it was Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer. It was that sort of dominance in the AFC. But everybody talks about baseball and how unfair it is. So the Patriots go through their dynasty, and now Patrick Mahomes is squarely on the heels of the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. The announcer for Fox didn't announce. He announced the Commanders-Eagles game, and he'll be announcing the Chiefs Super Bowl game. Can you imagine Patrick Mahomes, who is not – how old is he, Coca? I just had this fact, and now my brain in a live show without a teleprompter. Is he playing at 30 right now? Is that his age? He's 29 years old. Even if he doesn't last nearly as long as Tom Brady. If Patrick Mahomes wins this Super Bowl, his 4th Super Bowl, putting him only 3 behind, you'd have to believe he's got a good chance of catching him. Plenty of parity in the NFL. How about this? Second thing, I'm over it. I am over it. I don't want to see two men working on the weekend, lover boy, walking toward the ball and saying, oh, here's the spot. No, here's the spot. Oh, fourth down, turnover, didn't make it. One of the most important plays from yesterday happened when Josh Allen did a tush push, which we'll talk about. He basically rushed the ball fourth down. He needed about a foot, and apparently he got half a foot. Apparently, because it is the most unscientific thing. So this is what I was thinking. It's the damn strike zone. How often do we complain? That's not a strike. That's a strike. Oh my God, that's a foot outside. And we're leaving it in the hands of umpires. Bless their soul. They have a new collective bargaining agreement. They're all set up again for another number of years, 5 years. Totally random. The strike zone, of course, is defined in the rule book. There's an actual picture. There are measurements. But let's not complicate this with facts. The strike zone is random. We used to have papers that told us which umpire, when we knew who the home umpire was, where the strike zone was going to be. And then hope for consistency at best, and then call Joe Torre later in the career, complaining when it wasn't. Football has the same thing. The entire spotting of the ball. We can deflate the ball. We can inflate the ball. How about putting a little chipper in the ball? The technology is there where you can measure what 10 yards is, and you can have lasers. We build buildings. We do surveys. Have you ever seen one of those pointers? We hang art. I can measure 10 yards to the millimeter. I can also do a line right across. And I don't mean the yellow TV generated line or the red TV generated line on fourth down, because that's good red. You got to get there. Reminds me of Squid Game. When the NFL tells you the technology is not there, they're not being honest with you. Are they scared to rely on it? Are they worried about how it will impact the game to have exact measurements? Because then they would not have the ability to manipulate spots? You can certainly manipulate pass interference in the end zone, can't you? When to call it, when not to. You can manipulate holding calls, when to call it, when not to. Do we all agree on that? We can decide when it's a personal foul, when it's not. My frustration in the game is that we have in 2025 the ability to do things, whether it's through replay assist, whether it's through technology. I don't want to ever have a conversation where someone says to me, there is bias. It's better for the NFL to have the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You're damn right it is. Chiefs fatigue is a funny concept that everyone's talking about. Here's who doesn't have Chiefs fatigue: sponsors. We have the ability to take all of the guesswork and make it truly up to the players on the field, and we choose not to do it. Where's the explanation of that? How do you watch your game and not adjust your rules? Am I the only one sick of the tush push? Maybe. David P. Sampson on X. I can't even understand some of the comments and tweets. It's called a quarterback sneak, Dave. Well, no, it's not, John. I've seen what quarterback sneaks are. When you have people in the backfield who are literally pushing the player who has the ball, that's called a tush push. You don't want to say tush. Say, what did they say on Lebitard's live watch party? A pass ass, an ass pass. You can't do it from 2 yards out. The Bills going for 2 points as often as they did and missing twice. They could have used those points. Would you agree? So much analytics about when to go for 2, when to go for 1. Sometimes don't you get the feeling that everyone's outsmarting themselves and they're doing it just to say, oh, this is what the numbers are. We have totally shown analytically what we should be doing. And you call a play when you see the way the game is, when you call Josh Allen on that 4th down play, when you call Josh Allen, no matter what Tony Romo says about, I'm going to have Superman with his cape on, and we're going to have Josh Allen touch the ball twice in a 4 set downs. Well, he's going to touch it 4 times, but I digress. When you're watching the game and you realize that it's not happening, that somehow the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of coordinators, Spags, has found a way to stop this play, why do you keep calling it? Maybe I watched the game in a way that others didn't. Maybe my level of frustration given my pick of the day, maybe that was it. I don't know how you look at that game and don't say to yourself, the Bills did everything wrong to win that game. Now I'm going to be positive about the Chiefs. It's incredible. The number of one possession games they've won in a row, I believe that was their 12th this season. They're on a historic streak. Side note for people calling games or having conversations, it's not a historical streak. It's historic. Historical is the old house down the block that you look at that's falling apart that you have to pay $4.50 to walk through. What the Chiefs are doing is historic. All right, I got something else for you. I'm watching this game, the Bills Chiefs, and I'm thinking to myself, as we all knew was going to happen, other than when you pick the game 4 days in advance. When you're watching that game, I don't know about all of you. Did anybody have a thought that the Bills could win that game? Anybody at all? It was guaranteed. As it is written, like in Dune 2, it is written, Javier Bardem. So the Chiefs win the game. They're winning the game. It's going to win, whatever. The 4th down doesn't convert. I'm looking at Josh Allen. The Chiefs then need a 1st down. They've got their timeouts. Of course, they get the 1st down. They go to victory formation. It's over. I'm looking at Josh Allen, and all I kept seeing was Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing, as you know, Knicks couldn't get past Jordan. Josh Allen cannot get past Patrick Mahomes. He simply can't. It is as though he never will. The only time Ewing advanced to the finals, 1994, when Jordan was on maternity leave. That's it. He was hurt in 99. So I'm thinking, when you're preparing for the game and you are McDermott, do you just go into that game believing that for whatever reason this time it's going to be different? And yet you go at it with the same exact playbook, and then during the game you're not making any adjustments. Meanwhile, Andy Reid and his coordinator Spags are just trumping you. Every move you make, they're 3 steps ahead. I, for one, am happy for the Chiefs. I like seeing dynasties. I like living through historical moments. Get it? No? I didn't deliver it right. All right, let me do it again. Do you like living through historic times? Historic moments? What Patrick Mahomes is doing, what the Chiefs are doing? I've never seen anything like it. Do you know how many teams get to score 4 touchdowns and not turn the ball over and lose a playoff game? Nobody but the Bills against the Chiefs. At some point, you realize that there's something else going on. Skill? Referees? The gods? They must be crazy. I was sure that the Eagles were going to lose to the Commanders because I had this weird feeling about Josh Harris. I had this weird thing about Daniel Snyder. I really had a view that the Commanders were going to do it, and Jaden Daniels and his composure would get them past the Eagles' defense. Somehow they'd figure out a way to stop Barkley. Somehow, first play from scrimmage for the Eagles, Barkley goes 62 to the end zone. Thinking, of course, he's going to get over 127.5 yards now, pick of the day. Thinking, of course, the Eagles, that's it. Barkley's going to have a 200-yard game. Meanwhile, after that, he only ended up with 118 yards. The thing about the Eagles-Commanders game is you saw that the Eagles, when you combine Barkley and A.J. Brown, do we have special music we play when I got something so wrong that in my head was so right when I said it? And then you look and see how things develop and you realize, I was wrong. Do we have music for that, Coca? Boy, are we a highly produced Metal show. It's amazing, isn't it? After 1,206 episodes, we are really taking full advantage of everything they have to offer. All right, I'll make up the music. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, we're paying Riley. We might as well pay everybody. A.J. Brown had an outstanding game. 96 yards, 6 receptions, touchdown. He had only had 3 receptions the previous 2 games. I thought that Hurts would freeze him out. I thought the Eagles would be furious with him for Bookgate, the distraction of inner excellence, the insanity of having a book on the sideline. Of course, I don't know if there's a little rule that Roger Goodell may have called in to the network. Maybe he said, Tom, I'll let you keep calling games, but Fox is going to have to do me a solid here. I don't want a camera on A.J. Brown on the sideline again. This is not about the New York City Book Fair, because I saw no cutaways to A.J. Brown reading his book when he was in the middle of a 6-reception, 96-yard game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was in the bathroom. Did you all not notice? No A.J. Brown? Did you notice the cutaways to Taylor Swift have gone way down? Anyone else notice that? Anyone keeping count? Other than me? I was wrong on A.J. Brown. I still don't know that he's going to be on the team next year. I'm not sure I'm wrong about that, but I am wrong about how he's going to be used for the rest of this season. He's got to be part of the playbook for the Super Bowl. Sirianni has 2 weeks. He cannot outcoach Andy Reid with 2 weeks. Not going to happen. The line came out. The Chiefs are favored, small favorites. It's what the Chiefs always are. They're small favorites. People go against them, and then they win. That's how it goes. Do you know the Eagles had 7 rushing touchdowns and scored the most points of any team ever in a NFC championship game in the history of NFC championship games? 55 points. There was a Super Bowl, Coca, back in the day when the Bills were going to 4 straight Super Bowls. Haven't been since. I want to say that Doug Williams and the Redskins, or did they crush the Broncos? I think they crushed the Bills and scored a huge amount of points. I know there was an NFC championship game maybe in the 40s. The Cowboys beat the Bills. What was the score of that game? They just crushed 52-17. It was not Doug Williams. It was Jerry Jones. We're going to talk about Jerry Jones. We can't talk about Jerry Jones before talking one more thing about the Commanders-Eagles game. What an interesting time in the history of the Commanders. You remember they underwent the ownership change to Josh Harris. Josh Harris, the very successful owner of the Sixers. And Daniel Snyder was forced out. Daniel Snyder, if you've been listening to Nothing Personal, is one of our favorite conversations to have because he does and says things that are just asinine. He had all those investigations and the NFL was fighting with him, and then they were fixing the investigations. Remember Beth Wilkinson and all these things that were going on? And then he just disappeared. He got paid a couple billion, whether he netted a couple billion or not, I don't know. No one knows. Anyone who says, oh, he got $5 billion. No, that's not how it goes. But anyway, he's gone. He disappeared sort of like Frank McCourt. sort of like Donald Sterling. They just go puff in the night. And then an article comes out yesterday or 2 days ago, right as the game is being played. Seth Wickersham on ESPN is doing an article about how Daniel Snyder is angry with the success of the Commanders. Or in our parlance, he's despondent beyond repair. It caught my attention just a little bit because, of course, he is. Why is that article worthy? Everybody who sells their team, they may not admit it, but I promise it's true. They are not wishing success for the team that they ran for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They want to look good. The way to look good as a previous owner is for the new owner to stumble. Boy, I was crushed when Derek Jeter stunk. I'm telling you, I could barely get out of bed. I was so negatively impacted by his total failure. So sad. Was I happy when they made the playoffs in the COVID-shortened year? Was I happy when they made the playoffs with all those one-run games a year ago? Yeah. The second one much more so than the first, but the first one, because I still had people at the Marlins I was happy for. Why is it newsworthy now? What do you think's going on there? Do you remember when Daniel Snyder got pushed out and the other owners were sort of nervous about that because you go for Snyder, you're going to come for me next? All the people who are supporting Trump, are they worried about being gone after? Or do they realize that, of course, because they're the majority and most people do it in the closet, but other owners are more out there, and we talk about who shows up to the inauguration? Are they worried about things that they're doing in their own organization, their own administration, that would cause them to be forced out? Hours of shows on that topic. The reality is what Snyder did and got caught doing was simply inexcusable, and he had to go. So he goes, pretty much not a subject of any conversation. And what did we learn in the article? What was the lascivious part of it? That he effing hates it? Hates that the Commanders are good? Really? I don't know. I don't like when we spend time, or the media spends time, or executives spend time misleading you or getting you to think about stuff that is so obvious and making it as though it's a eureka moment. I don't like when owners do press conferences and say things that they don't mean, and they do it to manipulate you and your thought process. It's too Kool-Aid-y for me. And being a sports fan is Kool-Aid enough. Think about all the Bills fans out there. Think about the Ravens fans. Are they all happy? I didn't even talk to Coke about this pre-show because God knows we were distracted by things that a show shouldn't be distracted by. Do you think that Ravens fans are happy that they got the hurt out a week ago? That now it's back? Being a sports fan, as we've all agreed, you're going to end up miserable 99% of the time. You will have moments that will bring you back. It's a drug. We feed you this drug because we feed you the feeling that doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's so good, you're going to chase it, and you're going to keep chasing it. It's the mentality of people in the industry. When you lose the last game of the year, which everyone does, oh no, if you don't make the playoffs, but you win your last regular season game, you end the season on a positive note. Side note, Coca, that was my favorite thing to talk about in the media. One of my top 10 favorite things. When we'd end a 90-loss season, but we'd win the game. Well, it's really good to go into the offseason feeling good about a win. It's so happy to have eliminated the Mets when we did that in 07, 08, or 06, 07. And I would have to take the microphone and explain what a satisfactory ending. No, I was miserable. There is one happy time I had in 18 years because we won a World Series. There is no satisfaction. If you lose the Super Bowl, you don't really think what you say publicly. Oh, I'm so proud of these guys. You put a tear in your eye, Dan Campbell. I'm all emotional. You have had a failure of a season. Now, I don't necessarily think that we should look at it that way because we set ourselves up for this, but it is true. There's winning it all, and then there's everybody else. What's the difference? Oh, Tom Brady on the broadcast said you get 2 weeks you get to meet with your coach to talk about logistics of the Super Bowl. You get your aunt and uncle to want tickets. You get the excitement of going to New Orleans and getting the patch on your jersey. All of that is great if you win. If you lose, it is meaningless. Oh, I'm just so happy to have had the experience. So honored. Well, if you're a Bills fan, is that how you feel about going to 4 Super Bowls in a row and losing? Congratulations. I don't get that at all. So owners will say things, coaches will say things, players will say things. Jerry Jones is something else, isn't he? Jerry Jones hired a coach. Yeah, that's not the way to say it, Coca. Let's do it better. Jerry Jones promoted a coach. Brian Schottenheimer is now the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Is it possible that Jerry Jones and his family, his son, his GM, Jerry, did they look at the team and say, I know, Mike McCarthy was really the problem. We get rid of Mike McCarthy. All we do is promote his offensive coordinator, and that is the solution. Nailed it. Deion Sanders, we interviewed him. We got to interview somebody. We got to follow the Rooney Rule. We got a bunch of guys. We just released a few templates on Twitter. We interviewed the following 8 guys, and now we are just promoting Schottenheimer, the career assistant coach. Jerry Jones, as per Adam Schefter, actually said he ain't Brian no more. He's now known as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He is not a career assistant. Now, it is funny that once you are a head coach, you're no longer a career assistant, but you really are a career assistant because that's been your whole career. Is that the thing where you start dating your best friend, wife? Let me do this cleanly because it's going to come off so badly because this does happen and I don't want to offend or upset people who are living through, oh my God, my husband left me for my best friend. These things happen. You think Jerry Jones was scouring the universe and he realized that it was right there the whole time? There's a great 80s song about something being right there the whole time. And it's a long-haired band. Can you imagine my brain? I've had it here the whole time. You were right in front of me. It's not Eddie Money. This is going to make me insane. Somebody please help me, David P. Sampson. It's not Save the Best for Last. God dang it, Coca and Sarah of no use. Do you think that's in this regard, at least? Do you think that's in that regard only, actually? They're so useful in every other regard. All technical issues, all the social clips that you all see, all the shorts, everything. I do nothing but talk for 50 minutes. Those two do everything. It's just a strange thing when you promote your third base coach or your bench coach. Totally different once you're in charge. The way you think you're going to be, that you will be different from Mike McCarthy when you are the offensive coordinator. When you are all of a sudden in the main office, it all changes. I've seen a bunch of bench coaches become managers. They go from the coach's locker room to the manager's office, and all of a sudden the sphincters get tight. All of a sudden the decisions get faster, harder. They come quicker. There's more to keep track of. I just don't know at all what Jerry Jones was thinking, but I'm happy for Brian, I guess. I mean, there's several ways you do it. You can start with a hotshot coordinator of Ben Johnson. We saw him go to the Bears and get paid. You can promote your own guy and give him a much more modest raise. You can do it that way if you want, because Jerry Jones has cash flow problems for sure, obviously. Or you can go the Tom Brady way and pretend that you're going for someone new, but end up hiring a 73-year-old Pete Carroll, who came in, make sure we got the message that he was full of energy, bouncing off the walls, raring to go. We don't often characterize people that way unless they're old, to let us know, hey, they may be old in years, but they're young in spirit. They look great. They got some Botox. They got rid of some wrinkles. They got some tan, and they're ready to go. You need energy as a football coach. Giving a 73-year-old a 4-year deal, listen, I'm in. The ring I have is from a 72-year-old. I get it. Dusty Baker broke his record. I get it. Way to go. Does Pete Carroll have the ability to be the coach that Tom Brady wanted? Maybe. Maybe. I think Tom Brady's going to learn a very important lesson as he runs the Raiders going forward. It's important to have a good coach. In the NFL, it's actually more important than any other league. You need good players. Tom Brady's going to have to focus on that. We're going to go to break in a minute because after that, I just want to mention to tie one thing up before we go to break on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They did officially hire Cohen as their coach, the opposite of Pete Carroll, sort of different than the Brian Schottenheimer, who wasn't promoted by the Jaguars. Remember, he's the one who was going back to the Buccaneers, ready to sign a contract, disappeared from the Buccaneers, wouldn't return calls of his coach, Todd Bowles, or his GM, and all of a sudden is now the head coach of the Jags. I think we covered that on Friday's show. It became official right after we did the show. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to review a show, but we're also going to talk about the New York Mets and Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen did a town hall meeting, like a fan fest type thing, and he said some stuff about Pete Alonso and Scott Boras that is going to put a small tear in your eye. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Hope you all had a good weekend. Conference Championship Sunday. My Sunday started yesterday. That's funny. My Sunday started on Sunday. 3:30 a.m. I watched the Australian Open. I didn't sleep at all Saturday night. It was one of those terrible nights, but it was the perfect night to do what I do because I got to watch some content and then move that right into the Australian Open finals where Sinner, the alleged doper, is now a back-to-back Australian Open champion. We saw Madison Keys win her first major, an American woman in Australia. That was cool. It was fun. I love the majors. Doping. It's great. And then I got to go into content right into Championship Sunday. There's one more NFL game this year. It's not for 2 weeks. I'm going to ignore the hype for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to get to watch a lot of things. I want to explain to you a bias I have, and I think we all share it, but it's a strange one. And every time I'm proven wrong, I still go back to it. The bias is that when I don't know something, I assume that something is not worth knowing, or I have it right and someone else has it wrong. If I haven't seen a movie or read a book or seen a play, or if I'm not aware of a certain piece of information, it's such a cocky, sort of narcissistic way of looking at things. And I realize it, but I'm not able to change it. And it manifests itself in a lot of different circumstances. When it comes to award shows, this is a big one. When you haven't seen something, I'm going to say and I'm going to ask whether you feel it too and whether you're willing to admit it, because admitting it is Carly Simon. It's the hardest thing to do. Whenever Jean Smart wins an award for Hacks, I was like, I'm not rooting for her. I've never seen Hacks. There's no way I would like it. Hacks wins Best Comedy Series. That's an outrage. It's won it twice. That's ridiculous. How could my shows not win? And then I watched Hacks. I watched all 3 seasons. Every one of the however many episodes, 8, 9, 10, 27 episodes, 29 episodes, 3 full seasons. I'm going to have to look at my top 25 all-time TV series because Hacks is going to make that list now. Jean Smart is so brilliant in Hacks. Lorraine Newman's daughter is the co-star, Hannah Einbender. That's Lorraine Newman's daughter. I had no idea. Lorraine Newman, the original cast member of Saturday Night Live. Not ready for prime time? Anyone see that play in Miami? The great Susie Taylor played Lorraine Newman. And now I'm looking at this actress. I had no idea until I do the work to take a look because now I'm obsessed with hacks. Then I go back and look at clips of the award shows and say to myself, oh my God, of course Jean Smart is the best actress in a leading role in a comedy series. It's not even a conversation. And then I make myself feel badly for having the view that because I don't see something, total Kantian stuff, I don't see it, therefore it doesn't exist. That's how I am. Why? I don't want to be that way. I'm going to try. I think we all try, don't we? And then we fail. Hacks. It's so good. Remember when they won just at the Golden Globes this past month? And they said, please don't get Jean Smart drunk. The star of the show, the creator of the show, is also in it as Jimmy, the agent. Perfect. Pitch perfect. He said, please don't get her drunk. We're filming at 6 a.m. the next morning. And to me, I was, whatever. Like, go on to the next award. I don't know who you are. I don't care about this. And now I'm upset. So strange. I don't know how to get better. I guess it'll just add to my obsession with engaging with more content, more things. Stevie Cohen. Coca, I'd like to apologize in advance for all the Ravens and Mets stuff. I'm really hurting you, and I don't mean to. This isn't personal. No, relax. We have 14 minutes left. Stephen Cohen addressed the Pete Alonso negotiations yesterday, and it was spectacular. It's going to require some translation. So I want to set it up for you because we're going to show you what Stephen Cohen said. When you go and you meet, and now's the time right before spring training, which opens in a couple weeks, you're meeting your fans, you're meeting your sponsors, you're doing fan fests, you're trying to drum up interest in the upcoming season. You want to show your amazing casino project. That's really something. No more chop shops, just a bunch of we sell and buy jewelry shops. And we're happy to cash your paycheck early shops. Maybe those are better than chop shops. Maybe not. So Steve Cohen takes the microphone, and I'm very happy that he does. It's great for the show. Good for him for not hiding. All the fans are chanting they want Pete Alonso signed. There's this outcry to get Pete Alonso with reckless disregard toward the reality of Pete Alonso's situation, which started many years ago when he hired Scott Boras. So Stevie Cohen takes the microphone and listen to what he says.
And back to us. I think it's highly asymmetric against us, and I feel strongly about it. And so, I will never say no. There's always the possibility. But the reality is, we're moving forward, and we continue to bring in players. As we continue to bring in players, the reality is, it becomes harder to fit Pete into what is a very expensive, group of players that we already have, and that's where we are. And I'm being brutally honest. I don't like the negotiations. I don't like what's been presented to us. Listen, maybe that changes, and certainly, I'll always stay flexible. If it stays this way, I think we're going to have to get used to the fact that, we may have to go forward and with the existing players that we have.
Please don't think for a minute that Stevie Cohen is not involved. Hard not to be a meddling owner, isn't it? They're all meddling. I love that Steve Cohen's willing to talk about it. He uses the I word a little too much. David Stern sitting right there. It's good to say we, although Scott Boras won't deal with David Stern, so he'll only deal with Stevie Cohen. And I didn't mean to say that's a terrible verbal tick, so please edit that out, Coca. You know that Scott Boras represented Juan Soto, who did sign with the Mets this offseason, but that was a far easier negotiation because Stevie Cohen went to a place where he gave Scott Boras the record in every which way but loose. everything Boras wanted, Steve Cohen said yes. He then moves on to Pete Alonso and says, Alonso is no Soto. And Boras says, well, you brought Soto in. If you don't bring Alonso back, then you're only better by the increment of Soto over Alonso. If you bring Alonso back, then you're better of the entire Soto increment. What are we doing here? Scott Boras overplays his hand with his free agents on a consistent basis. We know this. We saw it with those 4 players last year, Bellinger and Montgomery, etc. Snell. He's doing the same thing with Bregman and with Alonso. You don't need to be a good agent to get Ohtani and Soto signed. You just don't. Where agents make their money and where they differentiate themselves is when they're able to find players' jobs like major league invites to spring training, guaranteed deals, no split contracts, when you can squeeze your way out of being a non-roster invitee, when you can get a Seth Lugo deal. Agents don't make their money. They make their money. That's actually incorrect to say. But a differentiating factor is getting your player evaluated properly and getting your player as a fit to a team. Scott Boras, with all the books that he prepares, it's all a bunch of horse hockey. You know this. Scott Boras doesn't want to do the work that's required to take his players to arbitration. He doesn't want to do the work when a player is not going to be overpaid. He wants to make sure that he continues to overpromise so he can poach players from other agents and assure them that they will be treated with the utmost respect and level of importance and will get the sort of contract that no other agent could get. And he's just full of it. And now he's in a position with Pete Alonso where somehow the polar bear got sucked up into the vortex of this agent and has a completely misguided sense of his value. And Stevie Cohen is telling you, he wasn't talking to the fans during that sound you just listened to and video you just watched. He was talking to Boras. That's it. The same stuff that you'd say to Boras when you're privately negotiating. There was no reason for Steve Cohen to do that. It doesn't either advance the negotiations or deter them. It doesn't somehow make the fans and explain to the fans what's going to happen. All you do is then force Scott Boras into a response by what Steve Cohen did, and respond Boras did. He said Pete's free agent contract structure requests are identical to the standards and practices of other clubs who have signed similarly situated qualifying offer all-star level players. Can you imagine a bigger crock of crap than that response? He's so full of alliteration, among other things. His alliteration is brown. There's nothing different. Established fairness standards. Here's a message for you, Scott, and I know your people are listening. There is no such thing when you are asking for an amount of money in a number of years and the structure that apparently there's some rumor about what your structure is, that you want Pete Alonso to have an opt-out. And if he opts out, you then want the Mets to pay him an additional amount of money. That's according to Evan Roberts of WFAN. That's a new one, Scott. You're going to use the opt-out as a straight sword. You only opt out when you can get more money like you somehow managed to get for Snell and for Chapman. So if Pete Alonso is playing great next year and the free agent market's different, you opt out and the Mets end up paying him for 1 year and then he's right back in free agency so you can do it again. That's called using it as a sword. Fine. That's what you're going to do. Here's a special surprise for you. Steve Cohen is not going to give in to you. He already did once. His ego is such he's not going to do it twice. You want to threaten by going to Toronto and putting the leak out there that you took the physical, that you're ready to go. You're giving the Mets one final. Is that what, Scott, you think he'll do? He'll call up Steve and say, I promise you, he's really going to go this time. Think that'll make the Blue Jays fans happy? They'll be thrilled that somehow the booby prize is going to the great city of Toronto with the great organization. The whole thing should sicken you. Dynasties are hard. We're seeing the Chiefs in one. We talked about it to start the show. The Astros are trying to hang on to one by their fingernails. The Warriors are trying to hang on to one by their toenails. One of Boras's other clients, Alex Bregman, has not signed anywhere. Some weird stuff happened this weekend. Jose Altuve, their Hall of Fame second baseman, he wanted you to all know, very important for the fans to know, that he'd be willing to play left field in order for Bregman to come back and play third and then move Paredes to second and move Altuve to left, all in the best interests of the team. The Astros, with financial realities that caused them to trade Kyle Tucker, financial realities which caused them to trade Ryan Presley. Yes, the Cubs did trade for Presley. Yes, it is true that they're going to cover part of his salary, but not all. When you are a team, you cannot continue to run it back and raise your payroll. You're not getting the concomitant increase in revenue. So the Astros are put in this position as everybody is. I think it's amazing that Jose Altuve is willing to play left field. No, I don't. Do you know why I don't? Because when we talk to players, when we signed Reyes, Hanley said, of course I'll go play third. And then he was miserable. The entire season got tanked by various things back in 2012. But Hanley, it turns out, was not being very forthcoming. He didn't want to go and leave shortstop. Is Altuve the type of guy who wants to be known as the greatest second baseman of all time? Or just a Hall of Fame offensive player? Obviously, his defensive skills at second base are not what they used to be. He's on the wrong side of 30, as you know. But then Altuve said, by the way, we haven't talked about it, but for Alex, I would do whatever. The Astros are trying. They're trying. But again, you've got the situation where Boras has put a number on Bregman that the league does not agree with. I'm going to give you a wait to see when I tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. An official wait to see, Coca. Yeah, Bregman is going to re-sign with the Astros. Nothing. Personal pick of the day. An absolute crushing. Friday, we had the Cavs giving 10 to the Sixers. The Cavs lost to the Sixers without Embiid. What's going on now? Now the Cavs are deciding to be mediocre? Any given day in that great league with great regular season action? That was it. We had the Commanders +6 against the Eagles. We needed them +23. My bad. 23, 33, 43, 53. Sorry, we needed them +33. They lost 55-23. That didn't win. We had the Bills money line over the Chiefs. Mea culpa. Another example. Why would I ever think that something would be different? Why? Of course the Chiefs were going to win. And I just didn't have the guts to pick the Chiefs and say, oh my God, how did you not know that this was Josh Allen's moment? You're a daft fool. But don't worry, we saved our weekend with the extra bet at the end of Saquon Barkley under 127.5 yards. He only got 118. How we possibly won that is beyond me. We are now 8-10. We are off to a rough start again. All these other people, whatever the reason, there was a guy, Coca, that I saw doing football picks, and he was like 100 games over 500. Is that with the spread, or is that just picking a winner with no spread? I'm just asking. Are some of these people that people pay money to get advice, are they somehow doing it at a rate because of their spreadsheets and analytics? Well, I'll tell you what my pick is because I'm not giving up. We're taking the Cavs again again giving 10 plus. They're giving 10.5 to the Pistons, who are a better team than the Sixers, frankly. The Cavs have lost 3 in a row. They're going to have to crush a team because you don't want to have this sort of stretch ever. Ever. You don't want to lose 4 in a row. What a weekend of sports. 2 weeks we get to talk about the Chiefs still. And I will go 2 weeks without mentioning a certain person's name. It's nothing personal. We'll be back tomorrow. This is just business. How did I do on that, Coca? Do you want to do it differently? It's just business. This is nothing personal.